Very good evening, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, being part of this session, sir. This is season 2 of our series of lectures called Knowing the Real, Doing the Right. And thank you for being part of the first session of the season 2, sir. Last season, when we had your lecture specifically on agriculture and agriculture issues, it was one of a very enlightening session and something which became a lot of use for students attempting the personality test last year. This year also, personality tests are starting from today, sir. This will go on till about May 20th. And a lot of participants in today's session are those who will be facing interviews in the next 2 weeks. Most of them from Karnataka have interviews in the next 2 weeks and also in the first and second week of May. We also have some students who are outside Karnataka and across India also. To all the audience present here, a very brief introduction of a very well-known personality, Dr. Ashok Dalwai is. Apart from his illustrious achievements of being a bureaucrat serving in state of Karnataka and Odisha, he has his authority in the area of agriculture. Presently, he is CEO of National Rainfed Area Authority. Very surprising in the larger area to the wide arena of experiences Sir carries. His model of self-assessment in terms of urban administration, specifically the DBMP area taxation, is something that is hailed as a model across India in urban administration. So, a wide area of expertise in agriculture, in urban administration, mineral development corporations, and extremely well-versed, well-read person, and the best person to have to give you the best inputs so that you can answer the right ones to the questions that will be posed in the personality test. So, with those very few words, thank you so much for accepting our invitation once again, sir. The session is now open to you, sir.
India for IAS for being passionate and persistent in training and orienting the youth desirous of getting into the civil services of our country. I understand and I'm aware that they have been benefiting immensely from your support. So do continue to support and help the country in picking up the best of the talents. Even as some may not be able to join the civil services, the orientation and training that you would be providing would be of a great support to them to appear for various other competitive exams across the domains and find an appropriate place. In addition, the orientation would be helping them to upgrade and expand their personalities and find it of great use in their life in general. So I wish you the very best on your continued efforts and services. Secondly, I take this opportunity of congratulating all the youngsters who have by now cleared 2 obstacles to find place in the highly desired and aspired for civil services. You all got through the prelims, which is very tough, and thereafter you got through a tougher written exam, and now you have been called for the interview by the UPSC board. This is reflective of your tenacity, resilience, grit and determination. It takes a lot of effort and patience simultaneously to go through this entire rigmarole and be at it. And that is happening only because you people are highly passionate and also are willing to put in the needed efforts, because nothing can happen without efforts. So congratulations to you, and I wish you the very best for the interviews that you're going to face over the next 2 weeks. I am not too sure whether you want me to speak first and what the subject that you want me to deal with, or you would like to convert this into a Q&A session. So depending upon what you feel better or what you would like to opt for, we can take this forward. So let me know whether you would like to make this just a Q&A session, or you would like me to speak something and then follow it up with Q&A.
Thank you for the introduction words, sir. The first half of the session, we will have it as a lecture or words about areas in agriculture, especially what would be the time after now that the agriculture farm laws have been revoked. So, how would be looking at the agriculture reforms that the government envisioned? If there are questions that our aspirants will be facing in this line, what would be the right way to answer? Concerns that Indian agriculture continues to face even today. What would be the right suggestions that we can put forward? Some of our aspirants also do come from the agricultural background, so there is general questions that they face. So why is that agriculture is now seen more as an occupation which most of them want to do away with? So in these lines specific to agriculture. And I would also wish that if you can touch something about urban administration and areas where India can develop specifically in urban administration, concentrating on metropolitan cities like Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, and areas. Post that, we will definitely open it up for question answers and we'll take it forward.
Thank you very much. So let me share a few thoughts agriculture in India. See, all of you are aware that since independence, and even before that, of course, naturally, India has been a dominant economic activity. In the year 1951, when the first 5-year plan was launched, we had a high percentage of people dependent on agriculture for livelihood. It was as high as 63%. Sorry, it was nearly 80%. And the share of agriculture in the nation's GVA, the gross value added, was also very high at 63%. Now, over the 74 years since independence, the percentage of people dependent on agriculture has declined to 48%. The share of the agriculture in the GVA has also declined from 63 to 20%. What do these figures mean? That the percentage of people dependent on agriculture for livelihood has reduced implies that the other sectors of the economy, that is, industry and service, have grown faster and have raised their share in the nation's GVA, accounting for this 80%. That the number of people dependent on agriculture has reduced implies that we have been able to shift the manpower in agriculture to non-agriculture sector. Simultaneously, there are other implications that we need to understand. These implications are that while the share of agriculture in the GVA of the nation's economy has reduced, in terms of absolute size, it has increased. means that agriculture also has grown. That there is a decline in the percentage of people dependent on agriculture to 48% is appreciable, but simultaneously we should understand that 48% even today is very high in absolute terms. When you talk of 48% vis-a-vis the country's total population of 132 crores today, in terms of absolute number, it translates into 62 crores approximately. This is a very huge population. This is almost 2 times the population of America. This is almost 2 times the population of the country in 1947. At that point of time, we had 32 crore population. That such large number of people even today depend on agriculture sector for livelihood, but share a very small percentage of the GBA 20, indicates that the per capita incomes of the farmers on an average are low. Because is sharing a small size of the GBA, which tells us that if we want to fulfill the constitutional guarantees, constitutional aims as enshrined in the fundamental rights and the directive principles, we must be able to increase the average income of the farmers. Average income of the farmers can be raised by creating greater wealth in the agriculture sector and simultaneously shifting the surplus manpower in agriculture to non-agriculture sector. Why is this important? If we are talking about per capita average income, then we'll be having the total wealth created in agriculture or the GVA as the numerator and the number of people dependent on the sector as a denominator. So common arithmetic tells us we should be increasing the numerator and decreasing the denominator. The numerator can be increased by making appropriate interventions to create wealth or GBA. But the shifting or the decreasing of the denominator will depend upon the ability of the other sectors of the economy, like industries and services, to absorb the surplus manpower. Only when they are able to grow robustly and create jobs would it be possible for us to shift the surplus manpower from agriculture. That there exists surplus manpower in agriculture today is very clear from the fact that there is underemployment, there is what is called disguised unemployment. And with increasing number, the land size remaining same, obviously there is a growing pressure of people dependent on agriculture. This may raise an issue in your mind. Hasn't agriculture of India grown over the last 70 years? Yes, it's a very relevant question. And the answer is positive, which means that India's agriculture has grown very well. In 1951, our food grain output was 51 million tons. And today in 2021-22, as per the second advanced estimates, our food grain output is 315 million tons. That means food grain output consisting of cereals and pulses has gone up by more than 6 times. The output of fruits and vegetables has grown to 335 million tons. It surpasses food grains. It has grown very fast in the last 15 years, and it is a huge growth compared to what we had in 1951. Likewise, the growth of milk to 206 million tons, growth of fish to 14 million tons, that of meat to 18 million tons, are all indicative of the growth trajectory of agriculture sector in our country. India today is one of the largest producers of agriculture at around 1.3 billion tons. That means around 1,300 million tons. In several segments, specific segments, India ranks at the top or near top. In wheat, in paddy, in sugar cane, pulses. In 80% of the agriculture produce generated on this earth, in the inter-country ranking, India would be within the first 5. So that shows how powerful we are in terms of production. The natural question is, if agriculture has grown so well, why are our farmers still poor? Why are they not enjoying good incomes? To give specific numbers, as per the situation assessment survey conducted by the National Statistical Organization for the year 2012-13, the average income of the farmers in our country was 6,426 per month. And the average monthly consumption expenditure was rupees 1,323. So if you subtract the expense, you'll get a saving of rupees 203. So income is low, expenditure is high, saving is low. So unless a family is able to get adequate income and also is able to save adequately, it becomes very difficult to live a full life, which means that not only are they meeting their food and nutrition requirements, but are also able to spend enough on their houses, on the children's education, on their health needs, travel, and meet other contingencies. And this is in addition to be able to save enough money to plow back as capital investment. If agriculture has to grow continuously, then they must be able to make investments, capital investments, for example, digging a well, developing a land, or buying new technologies like seeds, for example. So on all these scores, what we find is poor incomes are not enabling farmers to make adequate investments and continuously grow. So in result, what we're seeing today is, notwithstanding the high volume of production, the problem of our system, our agriculture system, is low productivity. That means average yields per acre, for example, in crop segment, are lower than what is possible. What is technically possible is not fully harvested. It is lower than many countries which are doing very well. And within the country, there are interstate variations. So this low productivity in crops, low productivity in horticulture, low productivity in livestock, low productivity in fishery segment indicates the necessity of introducing new technology, building the capacities of the farmers to absorb that capacity, and then supporting them through proper policies so that they are able to access the finances required. They are able to access the markets required and in benefit from various ways. Secondly, if the farmers are facing the problem of low income despite a good growth, the citizens as consumers are also not very happy with the system. You have read by now that in India, there is what is called nutrition deficiency. There may be food sufficiency, but not nutrition sufficiency. A human being for his good health requires to consume a balanced diet. A balanced diet is that which is meeting the prescribed rates of macro and micronutrients. Under the macronutrient, you have the carbohydrates, the proteins, and fats. Carbohydrates will come from various cereals. Proteins will come from pulses and meat, etc. Fats will come from oil seeds. And then micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals, both of which will come from fruits and vegetables, apart from, of course, other food categories, and the essential amino acids. So consumers are not able to access balanced diet. For example, they want to have proteins, that means you need good quantum of pulses in our country. If you want to access minerals and vitamins, they should be able to afford the fruits and vegetables and other kinds of agri commodities. As you know, food security has been defined by FAO as a state where the availability, accessibility, and affordability are proper. That means there's enough food that is required in the country and it is accessible. It may be available in Delhi, but is it available in a remote village? And then is it affordable? Yes, it may be accessible, but is the family able to buy what it requires? Today, for example, fruits and vegetables are still considered very costly, so not all families consume fruits and vegetables. Not every family is able to consume enough milk, for example, or even meat and fish. So availability, accessibility, and affordability are three cornerstones of food security or nutrition security. So this implies that our agriculture production system has to be redesigned to meet these requirements. Incomes for the farmers, nutrition for the consumers. The third one, of course, is the ecological sustainability. If we are producing more and more without respecting the sustainability, then a situation will arise where the yields will start dropping down. For example, over the last about 50 years, where we have practiced what is called green revolution technology in the irrigated areas, we have extracted too much, given back disproportionately low. So what we see today, groundwater table has come down. The soils have got barren, which means that they are not productive. since we have not used water properly, or we have excessively irrigated in certain parts of the country, we see saline soils, alkaline soils, acid soils. We see groundwater has gone down even in the Indo-Gangetic plain. And then soils have lost organic carbon. Organic carbon is very important to maintain the soil fertility because it is organic carbon that promotes the microorganisms. So, what we see today is what is called as decreasing marginal rate of returns. So that means that if you want to realize one incremental unit of a particular produce from an acre of land, you need to add more of nutrients, which is unsustainable. Because after all, if I want to get extra 1 quintal of paddy from 1 acre of land, if I'm needed to add more fertilizer, I'm doing it at no profit then in that case. But I want to earn profit because income is my concern. So this has all happened because we have not been able to maintain the health and ecology that is required for consistent growth in productivity. Hence, our agriculture production system requires to be reoriented in such a manner that it is producing in such a manner that farmers get good incomes. It is producing those types of commodities which will meet the nutrition, and simultaneously the method of production is such that our ecology is not compromised in relation to its health. So, in reconciliation or harmonization of these three apparently contradictory requirements requires a good policy formulation, good designing of the programs, and giving the necessary support. As you are now aware, that incomes will depend upon two things. One is that I produce at cost efficiency. Second, whatever I produce and I want to sell, I fetch good prices on them in the markets. If we're talking about incomes for the farmers, then we need to practice agriculture as an agricultural enterprise, as an agribusiness, not as a default production system. When you talk about enterprise, an enterprise is one which is practiced on the principle of profit. A profit is a function of three variables. The first variable is that I am able to achieve high production through high productivity from my assets, land or cattle or something like that. Second, I'm realizing that high production at efficient cost of production. That means I'm not spending too much on inputs like water, fertilizer, pesticides, labor, etc. I'm utilizing rationally. That means the use efficiency of the inputs is very high. Third variable is the marketable surpluses. That means all that I grow and keeping aside what I need from my own family is called as a marketable surplus. So that marketable surplus can fetch good prices in the market. If I'm not able to get good prices in the market, then notwithstanding my good output, I still will meet a loss. So these three variables must be kept in mind to ensure that the net profit is positive. So you must, if somebody asks you what do you mean by agriculture business and how do you think agriculture must be practiced, you should be able to say very clearly that it must be practiced as an agribusiness, which means that we must help the farmers to realize higher productivity at cost efficiency and simultaneously ensure that they get remunerative prices on whatever they're growing and whatever they want to sell. So this will be the basic principles. Now, how do we ensure that we are able to do these things? So in the strategy for doubling farmers' income between 2016-17 and 2022-23, we gave 7 sources of growth for income. The income growth we identified is dependent on 7 factors. First one is increase the cropping productivity. Because I told you the average productivity in India is still low. We have not yet harvested the full potential of the technology. Second, increase the productivity of the livestock. Third, increase the cropping intensity. Cropping intensity means the number of times a piece of land is put to use in 1 year. If I have 1 acre of land and I grow only 1 crop a year, my cropping intensity is 100%. But if I am growing the second time, that means I grew in Kharif, what is called Mungaru. I am also able to grow something in Rabi season called Hingaru. My cropping intensity has gone by 2 times, so it is 200%. If I am able to grow the third one in the summer, then it becomes 300%. So the same arable land is put to use multiple times in a year, and thereby you're increasing the total area, or what is called gross area. That means net cultivated area becomes multiple times now. If 140 million hectares is the net cultivated area in India, if I use it 2 times, it becomes 280 million hectares. 3 times, it becomes 420 million hectares. India today, the cropping intensity is 154%. So 140 million hectares of net cultivated area has become 194 million hectares of gross cultivated area, approximately. So we said one way to increase income is to help the farmer to increase the cropping intensity, thereby he's growing more in totality, and therefore is able to increase the volume of business. So that is the third thing. Fourth one is to diversify into high value agriculture. It depends. In business, for example, a businessman can sell high value crops, high value commodities, or low value commodities. We therefore similarly expect the farmer that if he wants to increase his income, can he grow high value crops? What does it mean? For example, sugarcane, cotton, or he goes for horticulture, fruits, vegetables, plantation crops, flowers, floriculture, medicinal aromatic plants, or he goes for livestock, poultry, fishery. Because these commodities have higher value, they'll get higher value for the farmers. So that is diversifying towards high value agriculture. Then the next one is resource use efficiency. That is what is called total factor productivity. That means how efficiently are you using your resources? Water, for example, soil, fertilizer, pesticides. Let us say irrigation. You can have a normal water flow, like what is called a flood system, or you can have a micro irrigation linked to that. When we use a micro irrigation system like sprinklers, drip, for example, you need lesser water for the same area, which means that water use efficiency has gone up. You will achieve a saving of 35 to 40% when you deploy micro irrigation systems. And productivity simultaneously improves, soils remain better. So likewise, when you bring in new technology, for example, you have a good seed which responds well to the resources. When you bring in micro irrigation, or you have tested your soils and therefore you're only using that much fertilizer as is required, or you are deployed digital technology which will help you to get more efficient, what's called precision agriculture. You are spending less to achieve higher volumes of productivity, production. Then sixth, as I told you, is transferring remunerative prices on the farmers produce. So if our marketing system is efficient, if price discovery is competitive, transparent, then the farmers get better prices. And therefore, they are able to earn more from the same production. If the prices are not good, they obviously can't get good returns. So these six sources of income growth are very important. The seventh source of income growth that we have talked about is little away from agriculture. It depends upon the way the economy grows. The first six sources that I talked to you about are directly related to Ministry of Agriculture or various concerned departments. They all add to higher wealth, GVA, and the numerator becomes large. Now, to decrease the denominator so that the per capita income becomes high. And the way to decrease the denominator is to shift the manpower in agriculture, which is surplus, to non-agriculture sector. And that is possible only when industry and service sectors are growing and provide an opportunity of jobs for the people engaged in agriculture. So these are the seven ways of increasing the total wealth created in agriculture and simultaneously the average income of the farmers. So there are many issues which there's little time to go through all that. But then I think you should remember a few associated things. The few associated things are that climate change is having a very negative impact on agriculture. Climate change is an account of high emission of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide mainly, then nitrous oxide, then methane, and ethane, and other kinds of gases. When the greenhouse gases increase in the quantum, then it changes the climate, which means that there will be a rise in temperature, there will be weather extremes. Extreme weather means there could be a drought, there could be a flood, there could be a hailstorm. So these are all weather extremes, weather aberrations. But the frequency increases now. If we had drought once in 5 years earlier, we may have one twice in a period of 5 years. We may have the same season drought as well as a flood. So these kind of weather extremes are increasing today. And climate change, because of the rise in temperature, it impacts the yield levels. It impacts the yield levels on the surface of earth, in the water body, and also on the livestock. So whether the yields of wheat or paddy or other kinds of crops, yields of livestock, yields of fish are bound to get negatively impacted because of the climate change. Which means that we need to develop proper mitigation and adaptation measures. Mitigation means to ensure that there is no further worsening of the situation. So we have to see how we can reduce the quantum of greenhouse gases. However, at the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework of Climate Change, it is largely agreed that developing countries need not focus much on mitigation. They can focus on adaptation. Because we in the developing world are not producing as much greenhouse gas as the Western countries are doing. So it is their responsibility to reduce the greenhouse gas. Whereas poorer countries have to see how to develop resilience. That's called adaptation. Yes, temperature has risen, so I adopt a new technology which will offer resilience to my crop. I adapt more drought proofing measures or flood resilient crops. So this adaptation becomes extremely important. So climate change is one issue. Second issue is that prices in agriculture are highly fluctuating. When they fluctuate, then nobody is sure whether you get the good price or not. So when a price is fluctuating, what is the normal scene you see? Immediately after the harvest, when the supply is there, it comes into the market, the prices fall. So all the efforts of the farmer gets diluted because the prices are low and he's not able to get good return. If you only can wait for 2 months or 3 months, then you'll see that prices are again picking up. Then if he sells at that point of time, he'll get better returns. But are our farmers capable of waiting for those 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? That is called as withholding capacity. I can withhold from selling my commodities till I get a good price, provided I have savings. I have something to fall back upon to meet my immediate requirements. Unfortunately, in our country, most farmers do not have that withholding capacity. They suffer from high debt and simultaneously poor savings. So they are forced to sell immediately after the harvest, and that's called as distress sale. So the way to overcome this distress sale is to make available credit to the farmers at concessional rates of interest against the commodities they will store in a godown or a warehouse. That is called a warehouse receipt system of the tiding over the difficulties. So there is now a system called as electronic negotiable warehouse receipt, ENWR. It means that if the farmers keep their commodities after harvesting in their recognized warehouse, then the banks can give them loan based on the valuation. And the farmers then take that money, meet their expenditure, and when they sell, they return the money to the banks. So just as crop loans are available to farmers at concessional rate of interest, today post-harvest loan is available also in when you store the commodities in recognized or authorized certified warehouses. Of course, still a long way for us to go because not enough warehouses are there. There's still not much of trust the bankers have to offer loan against the collateral. Farmers themselves are still not aware of this particular facility. But the need to negotiate the risks of price fluctuation after the harvest is one very critical requirement. But more importantly, our markets are not efficient. What is our marketing structure for agriculture? What you see is APMCs. APMCs are wholesale markets. Now, not all states have APMCs in the near vicinity of the farms. They have to travel a long distance. So a small farmer, a marginal farmer who has got small lots to sell, for him it becomes very costly to travel to the APMC to sell. He may find a purchaser, he may not find a purchaser. If he is not finding a purchaser or the man who's wanting to purchase is not offering good price, then he should be able to store it there. Or he wants to get it back, he should be able to get it back. But when he does that, he incurs costs. Therefore, we need aggregation platforms below the APMC level where the farmers are able to come together. They organize themselves into farmer producers organizations and then aggregate their lot. So this price fluctuation is another problem. Today, government is therefore focusing on post-harvest management. So a lot of reforms have been initiated. One is to improve the APMC system in the country, make it more transparent. When you auction, price discovery happens through auction. So if the price discovery is competitive, transparent, then the farmers are likely to get better prices. Therefore, we have introduced what is called as ENAM, National Agriculture Market. So the APMCs are connected to an online trade platform called ENAM, and the price auction happens on the trade platform. So this breaks the monopoly or cartelization of the commission agents or the purchasers, and there's likelihood of better discovery of prices. We have been able to link 1,000 APMCs so far in the country. Now we have taken steps to integrate another 1,000 APMCs, and the balance 700 will be linked thereafter. The second one is we have developed what is called a Model APMC Act. Government of India has shared what is called a Model Act because APMC agriculture markets under the Constitution fall within the jurisdiction of the state governments. Parliament cannot pass a law on APMCs, but we can make a model act and share with them so that it becomes a guideline for them to adopt a new act. So in the year 2017, Model Agriculture Produce and Livestock Marketing Act 2017, APLMC, was shared to make some reforms. One of the reforms is that there should be a single trader license. If a trader wants to buy, for example, in Bailongal APMC, or he wants to trade in Bangalore APMC, there's no need for him to buy two licenses. One license would be enough. So with that, the cost will come down. Second, to allow private APMCs. Because there's only one APMC in Kolar, then he becomes a monopoly. If we allow one more APMC, maybe set up by the private sector, there will be competition. Competition is very important. So likewise, various features have been introduced into the Model Act, and many states have now adopted those. The third reform is contract farming. Contract farming is a contract between the farmer and a corporate or a sponsoring company. Advantage is what? The risk that is associated is transferred from the individual farmer to the sponsoring company. The contract for prices. That means before the production begins, before the season begins, the two parties agree that I will pay you X amount of money if you deliver this kind of commodity. So whatever that happens to the price after the harvesting, the farmer gets that agreed price. And as a part of this contract, the sponsoring company can also give technology, like seeds, fertilizers, or takes responsibility for marketing. So this is a contract. So we have shared what is called a Model Contract Farming and Services Act 2018. The third one is to promote aggregation platforms, and they are called GRAMs, Grameen Agriculture Markets. You're all aware of Santes, hearts in the states. Now we want to upgrade those Santes into better managed aggregation platforms. That means there the farmers come with the produce, they're able to sell it properly on the sales platform. They're able to store it in the godown, or if it is a perishable, in the cold storage. And then there is a system of aggregation. There's a facility for cleaning, grading, and packaging. So this systematic aggregation platform through what is called grams is another important initiative. Then since our farmers are mostly small and marginal, and therefore the scales of economy do not operate. Scales of economy means if it is larger business operation, then the purchases are more efficient, sale also becomes more efficient. Since India, 86% of the farmers are small and marginals, we are now focusing on organizing them, mobilizing them into farmer producers organization. So the target is to form 10,000 FPOs by 2024. That is another initiative. And then another very important initiative is to strengthen the infrastructure. I told you the importance of markets. Even if the market is good, unless the farmer is able to reach his commodities to that market, he will not be able to benefit. So you need good logistics. If he's not able to reach the market in time, his commodity may start rotting, or it may be attacked by storage pest. There may be handling losses. Therefore, along with a good marketing system, we need what is called a good agri-logistics system. Storage facilities, transportation facilities, cold storages, reefer vans, pasteurizers, and so on. Hence, under the Atmanirbhar Bharat in May 2020, various infrastructure funds have been created to strengthen the infrastructure. These include Agri Infrastructure Fund worth rupees 1 lakh crore in the Department of Agriculture. Then Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Fund, which is nearly 20,000 crore in the Department of Animal Husbandry. Then Fishery Infrastructure Fund. So these infrastructure funds will strengthen the agri-logistics. Likewise, in the Ministry of Food Processing, there is what is called Prime Minister's formalization of micro industries. That means in the micro industries where food processing happens, where the technology is not up to date, under this fund of rupees 10,000 crore, they get support to upgrade their technology and become more competitive. So likewise, under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, rupees 4,000 crore has been allotted to promote medicinal plants in the country because a lot of medicinal plants are grown in our country. They need now to be promoted in the value chain. So this is another reform. So the reform that you're talking about, the 3 farm laws that had to be cancelled, annulled. One was what was called a central trade law, which allowed the trade to happen across the state governments, across state boundaries. The second one was related to contract farming. Yes, but we anyway have a contract farming act given to the state governments. So even if there is no central act on contract farming, the states will now be free to have their own. The other law was amendments brought to the Essential Commodities Act 1955. This was very important and unfortunately it had to be annulled. Under the EC Act, there are several control orders. Under the control orders, the state governments can, also union government, prescribe the upper limits of storage and transportation. For example, it can say nobody can store more than 100 quintals of jawar. Now this is regressive. Why is it regressive? Today there is surplus which is being sold or which needs to be sold. And who is going to purchase it? Government cannot purchase everything in any case through the MSP. If we want the private traders to purchase, if we are putting a restriction on the storage, obviously he will not store it. So this particular act was relevant in the olden times when there was shortage in the country. Because there was shortage, there was a tendency on the part of people to hoard it and black market it. The consumers would get affected. Therefore, it was necessary at that point of time. Today, when we have surpluses, we want people to purchase. But if you don't allow them to store, then there's a problem. So, of the three farm laws that we now talked about, I think the Essential Commodities Act was very critical. And of course, the Central Trade Law. And the other one, contract farming, is not really that regressive because we can have a state act. So we need more reforms. And other reforms, of course, include what is called Model Land Lease Act. Since leasing of land is also very important, a lot of leasing happens today, but it is informal. When it is informal, it is not legal. The person who takes the land on lease cannot get loans, cannot get various government supports through subsidies. And the man who is giving the land on lease, he is afraid to give because under the State Revenue Act today, lease is not recognized. So the Government of India has written a Model Land Lease Act and shared with the state governments to adopt it, and a few states have done it. So there are many other reforms that are required. For example, farmers, we are now building a centralized farmer database. Only when we know the number of farmers correctly, it becomes easier to transfer the entitlements through, for example, direct benefit transfer. As you know, there's something called PM Kisan, on which rupees 6,000 is given to a farmer every year. It can go through the physical format. When it goes through a physical format, then there can be a lot of corruption. But when you transfer it online directly into the bank account of the farmer, then there is no corruption. All the amount that he's supposed to get, he gets it. So today, by using the power of JAM, Chandhan account, there was a drive taken up by government in 2015 to open bank accounts. Then under the Aadhaar system, where everybody has been given an Aadhaar number. And then, of course, mobile today, number of mobiles are increasing, mobile penetration is there. So when we combine this Jandhan account, Aadhaar number, and mobile smartphone, then it becomes possible for us to transfer money directly into the bank account. So that is another very good initiative. So what we now see is that several initiatives have been made and we further need to strengthen them. So the short point, in summary, I would like to say that we need to now reorient agriculture in such a way that it satisfies the needs of the farmers in terms of incomes, it meets the nutritional requirements of the consumers, and is also ecologically sustainable. And the last point that I would like you to remember is that agriculture, so far considered as important only for food and nutrition, now needs to be considered important from the perspective of job creation. Because we have got huge population is still growing, and then industry sector and service sector, which will grow, will also be described by emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, sensors, etc., big data analytics. And a lot of these are highly labor substituting. We are therefore not sure whether we'll be able to generate as many jobs as required and whether they can create as many jobs as possible in the normal course. Hence, we must now make agriculture sector itself job oriented. And that is possible provided we have the processing, because processing creates a lot of jobs. And then agriculture produce can be utilized to generate new kinds of products. Biofuel, for example, as you know today, ethanol is produced, not just sugar from sugar cane. And ethanol can be combined, mixed, blended with petroleum products to be used in automobile sector. Likewise, we can produce bioenzymes, biofuels, biocomposites, biomaterials. So when agriculture is used not just for food and fodder, but to produce industrial materials, then there's a new market for agriculture. When you have a new market, that means a new demand is there. If there's a new demand, the prices will go up because prices ultimately are a function of supply and demand. More supply, less of demand, prices will fall. Less supply, more of demand, prices will rise. We need to have an equilibrium between supply and demand. Therefore, we must find new markets for agriculture within our country and simultaneously also focus on exports so that we start exporting from our country. There is a new demand for agriculture produce. So these are the broad issues, and you must also study what happened in Corona time. The 2 years of Corona time, agriculture is the only sector which grew, whereas other sectors suffered. Industry suffered a negative growth rate, service sectors suffered a negative growth rate, but agriculture recorded a positive growth rate. That means our farmers continued to work and government continued to support them. So we saw that food grain output increased. The agriculture growth was nearly 4%, and the share of GVA from agriculture in the total GVA increased. It was around 16.5%. It went up to 20% in the year 2020-21. And in the year 2021-22, it is around 19%. So there has been an increase in the share of agriculture in the total GVA in the last during the Corona time, because other sectors have not done very well. But agriculture showed its resilience. So agriculture is something that will always be there, and it is extremely important. So I think we will stop here on this. The other component of urban management, I'll share a little later. If anything you want to ask on this, let's now to get done with that, then we'll talk about urban management. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was a lot of perspectives into issues of which we would have some understanding or basic ideas, sir. We already have some hands up, so we will now open the session for questions. Aspirants are encouraged to ask their questions. You can also post your questions on the chat box, which we can read out. Benaka Prasad, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, with regard to better price realization for agricultural produce, we have a system in place called MSP. We also know that MSP is not effective in giving better price realization to farmers across India. There are some lacunae in the MSP system itself. So how do we correct it? And if at all there is a question like, should MSP be legalized in India? How do we go about that question, sir?
Yeah, the first thing is yes. We have a minimum support price which is notified by the government for 25 commodities. MSP is what is called a minimum support price. And this is based on the cost of production calculated by the CACP, Commission on Agriculture Costs and Prices. So cost of production less a margin of profit added to it becomes the MSP. So now government in 2018 took a decision that the margin of profit shall be minimum 50% of the cost of production. That means if the cost of production calculated by CSCP is 100 rupees per quintal, a minimum of 50 rupees are added to that to make it the MSP. This does not mean that government cannot give more than 50% margin of profit. It gives. Today, for example, wheat, the margin of profit is 109% of the cost of production. Most pulses have an average of 65%. So just know so much that MSP is nothing but cost of production plus the margin of profit given by the government and notified every season. The purpose of MSP is to serve as a price signal. Since the MSP is notified before the cropping season, it gives an indication to the farmers as to what prices could be prevailing in the market, and therefore they will decide what to grow and what not to grow. The second purpose of MSP system is what is called procurement operations. Procurement operations mean if the farmers are not getting the MSP price in the markets, then government will intervene to procure. Now, as you rightly said, that procurement has not been effective across the country. Procurement has mostly been effective in case of wheat and paddy. Since wheat and paddy are mostly grown in irrigated belts of Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, and a few states elsewhere, there has been benefit to the farmers growing these crops. On an average, 33% of the total production of wheat and paddy is procured. Now, as regards other crops, pulses, millets, etc., there has been some improvement in the recent years. In the year 2018, government adopted a new scheme called PM Asha. Wheat, paddy, and millets are supposed to be procured by Food Corporation of India, whereas pulses and oilseeds are covered under PM Asha, and PM Asha is operated by NAFED under the Ministry of Agriculture. So we have seen in the last 6 years that the procurement of both pulses and oilseeds has increased substantively, yet it is nowhere near wheat and paddy. And obviously, millets are still not procured very much because FCI expects the state governments to procure and that they will give them necessary support. Now, whether MSP can be legalized, in my opinion, it cannot be legalized, or it should not be legalized. The reasons are, when you say that legalized means that all the commodities have to be procured by the government, or the traders must give a minimum of MSP on their purchases. So now consider the first case, government procuring everything. If government procures everything, what do we do with that? Already, for example, the procurement of wheat and paddy is so much that as against an average norm of 36 million tons of buffer, today it is more than 100 million tons. So when government has to procure and store it for such a long time, there is a storage cost, and then there is a procurement cost because you have to distribute through the PDS at concessional rates. So it becomes unsustainable financially. But more important is that when you procure, where do you consume it? Suppose you sell it into the domestic market, the whole prices, all the prices in the markets will come down. When you are procured at high cost, you cannot export because you are not competitive in the global market. So it is not feasible. Take the second case, where we make it compulsory for the traders to purchase at a minimum cost at par with MSP. If you are a trader, you will purchase because you require it, because you think you can make a profit, and you'll also look at the quality. So when we sort of make it compulsory to amount to nationalization, when the trader purchases it, and if he's not able to find markets for his sale, then he will stop purchasing thereafter. Hence, it becomes infeasible. However, what is the way out then? Because our aim is to ensure that farmers get remunerative prices. So the only answer lies in improving the marketing efficiency. We create large number of markets and break the monopoly so that there is good competition and the farmers are able to get better prices through better price discovery. Then we improve the agri-logistics so that farmers can transport their commodities from one place to another in an efficient manner. We give him good storage facilities. We give him access to institutional credit at concessional rate of interest. We improve the export potential. We improve the processing system so that there is greater demand. And once the markets become efficient, the necessity to procure will be lesser. Because MSP, under MSP, the assurance to the farmers is, if you do not get adequate prices in the market or below MSP, then I'll come and purchase. So if we first focus on improving the markets, the price fluctuations will reduce, and therefore the need for government to procure will be lesser. The third reason why MSP should not be made per legal or guaranteed is, when we guarantee, then the farmers will start growing that particular crop where they get the highest MSP. Let us say that MSP on sugarcane, for example, is naturally higher than other crops, or wheat and paddy is more than other crops, suppose. Then the farmers will say, all right, let me grow wheat, let me grow paddy, let me grow sugarcane. And then we will not have diversification. We want diversification into horticulture, meat, fish. If there's no diversification there, then how do you meet the nutrition requirement? Minerals are all there, vitamins are all there. So diversification gets impacted. And when you procure at high rate, you cannot export also. So the optimal situation, that means in the long run, it is neither good for the farmers, nor for the government, nor for the consumers, nor for the ecology. We don't want more paddy. To grow 1 kg of paddy, you require 3,000 or to 5,000 liters of water. Imagine, as it is, India has less of water, and then we use that water to grow paddy because there is better procurement, and then we export that paddy to other countries. Other countries grow more of pulses and send us here. Just imagine the irony. We should be conserving our water. Here we are exporting embedded water. That means when you export paddy, you are actually sending out water from India. And those countries are growing less paddy. They buy it from India and send us pulse and oil seed. So we should be very careful. So on the face of it, it looks very populist, but is it sustainable? So in my view, you should also answer that we should need a blend, proper blend, optimal blend, efficient marketing system, and a robust MSP system, so that MSP based procurement is utilized as a tool to correct the system. If the prices are falling, if government intervenes to procure, then it sucks out the surpluses and therefore the prices will increase. It should be used that kind of a tool. So that is what is required. And see, because we kept on procuring paddy, wheat, for example, the area under millets has come down. Today, area under millets is around 18 million hectares. It used to be 43 million hectares in 1983. But we should eat more of millets, sorghum, bajra, ragi, because they are nutritionally rich. So, if we want to have a diversified agriculture, we should also give incentives that will promote the farmers to grow those crops. Today, unfortunately, in India, we have more of wheat and paddy, more of sugarcane, all water guzzling crops, less of oil seeds. India requires 26 million tons of edible oils per year, but we are growing producing only 11 million tons. And because our oil seeds are less. In result, 15 million tons of edible oil we import every year, which costs us 70,000 crores. The same 70,000 crores which is going outside now, if it is given to our farmers, then their incomes will increase. So we are deficit in pulses, deficit in oil seeds, deficit in millets, excess in wheat, excess in paddy, sugarcane. So we need to balance so that the resources or ecology is taken care of. I hope you appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We have about 3 or 4 questions online, sir. The first one is from Mr. Anurag. Anurag gives an example of Bihar, and he says, given the high amount of fragmentation of fields in our Bihar, contract farming or collective farming would be an ideal way. What would be your view on it? How would we encourage farmers to accept and adopt contract farming?
Ayana? Yeah, okay. You're talking about land division and fragmentation, which is true in India. Now, collectivization is not possible because people would not like to give up their possession of the land, etc. So, the alternate is to promote what are called farmer producers organizations. Farmer producers organizations will enable the farmers to keep the land under their control but operate it together. When you say operation together means what? To buy inputs, for example. All of them together can decide that we need fertilizer, we'll buy together and then distribute among ourselves as per the requirement. Likewise, to sell, that will all pool our material together and sell it. Or engaging labor. So, farmer producers organization, contract farming, these are the ways forward to address the issue of land division and fragmentation. Now, collectives is not possible. We have seen already in China, USSR, then USSR, that when you bring lands together, then not everybody works. It becomes like a public sector. Everybody's baby is nobody's baby. So instead of that, we have seen success of FPOs in Europe and other countries. So in India also they can succeed. So we can promote more of FPOs. And also, as I was saying, land leasing. When people are allowed to lease land, then natural consolidation happens. And third is contract farming. So this is what is the way forward. Okay.
Thank you, sir. That essentially answers Vishwas's question. Vishwas is also asking about practical differences between working of farmer producer organizations and farmer producer cooperative societies. So largely you have answered the question, sir.
See, one thing please remember, farmer producer organization is a generic term. Under the producers organization, you can have different kinds of organizations. It can be registered as a society. It can be registered as a cooperative. It can be registered as a company under the Companies Act. So there are different legally enabled groupings, but generically they are called as farmer producers organizations. So depending upon the people who come together, they can decide how they want to legally structure that. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Question from Chetan. Government is emphasizing on natural farming and zero budget natural farming, also organic farming. Given the crisis witnessed in Sri Lanka, what would be the way forward for sustainable agriculture without compromising productivity?
Yeah, I know that's a good question, and there can be no straight answer to that. But so much is sure that today's technology is what is called based on intensive use of resources. Because the nature of varieties that we have released, they are such that they give us high yields because they are also capable of using good amount of resources. Now, in result, the problem is that we have lost organic carbon in the soil because farmers are not adding farmyard manure. So some people are suggesting alternate agriculture called natural farming, organic farming. But yes, there is a fear that yields will come down. And in a country like India, where population is growing, if we shift everything to organic farming, then we may not have enough food. I mean, it will reduce drastically. Therefore, the way forward is, if organic farming or natural farming is being suggested, as a solution to the problems that have arisen in agriculture, then let the research and development find those kind of varieties which will give us good yields even under organic farming systems. We don't have those yet. So you can suggest that our R&D science has to tell us what is a new seed, new breed, new technology that will give us good yields even under the organic farming system or the natural farming system. So for the present, since we don't have that kind of a technology, integrated farming is important, is the answer. Integrated farming means we combine crops, horticulture, livestock, poultry, etc. so that they are using resources at different levels. One is using the surface nutrient, another going down into the soil, and simultaneously adopt integrated nutrient management. So that wherein both organic and inorganic forms of nutrients are used. First is that you add fertilizers or chemical fertilizers only based on soil testing, based on what is actually required for that soil. Today we are indiscreetly using it. Second, we'll also add organic manure, farmyard manure, composite, vermicompost. So when you combine both these things, the agrochemical based agriculture with the organic systems, then what we are seeing now, the problems might get answered. So I think the best thing is to take this situation that since we still don't have science and technology that assures us that yields will not be compromised when we go in for organic farming or natural farming, and considering the fact that India's population is growing, considering the fact that farmers need to get better incomes and our people need to get better nutrition, we can go for integrated systems. And simultaneously, R&D can work. Our ICAR, State Agriculture University, should be working on how to achieve good yields under alternate systems of agriculture. I think that can be the answer for the time being. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very insightful. Question on doubling farmers' income. One, the concept of it, and two, is it practical to achieve it in the near future?
See, I already gave you the strategy, the 7 sources of growth, and why it was required, right? Now, is it achievable? Yes, it is achievable. It is achievable that provided we implement the strategies we have decided. Now, whether it was achievable within the 6 or 7 years that we have talked about, we will know only after the year 2020 to 23. But we are going on right track. All the new policies I talked to you about, they're all as a result of this strategy adopted by the government pursuant to the DFI committee recommendations. We are aware that we are moving in the right direction. What has it done? It has shifted the attention from pure production to incomes. That means the government policies are giving a new orientation to India's agriculture. That agriculture is meant not just to produce food, but it is meant to generate jobs and generate incomes. So in the long run, the advantage is that agriculture now moves in an income orientation. So that will ensure that we start generating more and more incomes and jobs. So the 7 years period which has been allotted has also had problems of corona. Corona was not easy to deal with. So there will be some problems. But then the positive thing to look at is that we had earlier food deficit in the 1960s and therefore we adopted a food producing system, which we have achieved. That shows that India is capable of achieving. It has achieved because of good policies, because of good science and technology, and because of the ability of the farmers to adopt new technology. If today income is deficit and we want to increase the incomes, I'm sure that India is capable of achieving that also. It has shown several times earlier that it can do it. So you should be positive about it. And it is a need of the hour. We cannot keep our farmers below poverty line or at low levels of income. They have to be helped to come up. So the strategy suggested can help the farmers to achieve higher incomes. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Farmer suicide as a concept has both the social and the economic side of it. As aspiring administrators, what would be a strategy to reduce farmer suicide across the country?
See, now suicides are very unfortunate. Suicides are on account of economic pressures, social pressures, psychological pressures. And these suicides happen in every domain. It happens among farmers, it happens among other professionals also. So there has to be a comprehensive approach. It is not that if you improve their income levels, the suicides will stop. No. You see, for example, many rich people also committing that, or students doing that because of the pressure. So among the farmers, first attention has to be to improve the incomes. Second, to give them the social security. Third, a psychological security. That means we continuously need to orient them, to guide them, counsel them. Social security is very important. Today, the security is breaking down in the village. The families are breaking. The village community is breaking. So our approach has to be, why does normally farmers do commit suicide? They have borrowed money and they're not able to repay, and they have a high sense of self dignity. So if we can wean them away from the money lenders by giving better access to the institutional credit at reasonable rates of interest, then that pressure will not be there on them. If we can help them through a social safety net, for example, PM Kisan, rupees 6,000 being transferred. Like that, if we keep on increasing over a period of time, they have something to look upon. And of course, we focus on improving their incomes through better agriculture strategy that I spoke about. So the short point is that help them to get better incomes. Simultaneously, they need social support and psychological support. That is equally important. Many a time, the man has gone out to find employment, the woman is left behind. She is not able to manage. If something happens to her or the children, the man gets distressed. So it is a comprehensive thing. No suicide we should be allowed in whatever profession it is. But it is not one dimensional. It's not one dimensional. It is comprehensive intervention required. As I said, economic, social, and psychological support the farmers require. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Purva has a question with respect to the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which has created a vacuum in the global wheat supply. Can India fill the vacuum? What would be the potential challenges?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, India has got enough buffer stock. And if the countries which were dependent for imports on Ukraine and Ukraine is not able to sell, India can always fill the deficit, the gap. So now a price will be agreed at, or they can come and buy in the open market. So it is left to the country that wants to buy. But we should be able to take advantage of this particular situation. And in the international market, just like India, there could be somebody else wanting to sell. So the country which wants to purchase will look at the prices. So our prices have to be competitive. This is where another issue of MSP comes. If our MSPs keep increasing, we may not be competitive in the global markets. So that is another issue. So if we need to be competitive, we have to produce it at a lower cost. That means we have to help the farmers to produce at a lower cost. So this Ukraine crisis is an opportunity for India to build bridges with those countries which are in need of this kind of crops, commodities like wheat, paddy. And once we make the first relationship, it may be possible that it will sustain thereafter. Because once we have made business relationships, it can sustain year after year. They may find that they are getting better quality. They may be getting, because Egypt, for example, is nearer to us, let's say. So there's a good opportunity. Every challenge also gives new opportunities. So this particular global crisis is an opportunity for India to find a global market. And India has got an export policy. In 2018, agri-export policy was adopted for the first time with an aim that will double our exports. So we're at 36 billion US dollars in 2018. The target is to reach at least 62 billion dollars US billion dollars by 2020 to 23. For the first time this year, we already crossed 50 billion US dollars. So that means our exports are increasing, and we want to reach 100 US billion dollars by 2030. So we must focus on exports. If we want to export more and more, we must be able to meet the requirements of the international market, because every country has got its standards of quality, of pesticide residues. So keeping all that in mind, we must focus and improve the quality of our produce. So not just the quantum, but also the quality. That's very important. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. There's one other question regarding horticulture as such. India has a huge potential even in the horticulture sector. Is there a larger concern we are not able to match our potential? And how it would be feasible for specifically as a technique called hydroponics as a sustainable method of farming in horticulture?
See, horticulture has been growing in India. In the year 2005-6, government adopted what's called a mission, which is now called as Mission Integrated Development of Horticulture, MIDH. So under MIDH, we have seen now since 2005-6, the area has increased, the productivity has increased, and I told you the total quantum of fruits and vegetables and other horticulture produced now stands at 335 million tons. Till 2013-14, food grains used to be always above horticulture produce. For the first time in 2013-14, both of them were at par. That means we produced 261 million tons of food grains and 261 million tons of horticulture. But slowly over the last 7 years, the growth of horticulture has been more robust. Today, while food grains stand at 315 million tons, horticulture stands at 335 million tons. As a diversification policy, we must move towards more and more horticulture. Advantages are its high value. Second, it meets a lot of nutritional requirements like minerals, vitamins, etc. Thirdly, they are deep rooted, and therefore they'll be able to use water from ground level, from the deeper levels. They are also tolerant to climate variations. A lot of them, some of them are, of course, vulnerable. So there are many advantages. And India's still per capita consumption of fruits and vegetables is lower than prescribed. So we will have to move and more towards horticulture, and that progress is happening. And only thing is that horticulture produce is perishable. So we need to have very good storage system, processing system, transportation system, good marketing system. So that becomes very integral to promoting horticulture, and good marketing system, of course. So then it will keep picking up. And what you're asking about hydroponics, aeroponics, etc., which are what are called indoor farming systems, they cannot substitute the outdoor farming, but they'll supplement. All these things, yes, on your terrace, in the urban space, as elsewhere, we can grow them. They are good for certain crops like vegetables, leafy vegetables, fodder crops, and all that. But according to me, they will be supplements. They're good because in urban areas where everything comes from outside, maybe they can also start growing there within the urban spaces. So local requirements can be met to a great extent. So the technology is available, aeroponics, hydroponics, vertical gardens, then poly houses, greenhouses, shade nets. So these new technologies can be deployed to also promote these kind of alternate production systems. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We'll have last two questions specific to agriculture, and we'll shift the arena once that. One is about the BT and the HT technology specific to cotton and food crops in India. Would it be sustainable? And as we only have BT cotton in the market, what about the commercialization of others?
No, see, BT cotton, as you know, has been a BT cotton, as you know, has been a great help, right? And thanks to BT cotton, we were able to, control the pests. We also increase higher productivity, and we were able to regain the land lost earlier. Yes, there are some problems now. It is also losing its resistance, which only goes to show that your technology is not, it cannot be stagnant, not one time. You have to continuously find new technologies. After all, in the environment also, continuous succession is happening. That particular pest which may have found it impossible to penetrate now has learned how to penetrate. You have seen in our own corona, for example, we kept having and we continue to have variants, mutations. So there will be mutations. So biotechnology can help in bringing out new varieties. And if you're asking the question about biotechnology, yes, there is some resistance in the country because there are certain moral hazards related to that. But government is trying to find an answer. Because under the biotechnology also there are different technologies. There's one technology called gene editing. Gene editing is manipulation of the gene and it is intraspecific or interspecies. If it is interspecies, that means two different species are being crossed, as happened in Bacillus thuringiensis. In gene editing, within the same species, you'll be manipulating the germplasm. So there is no moral hazard there. So you can expect something that gene editing will be accepted, and then you can deploy that technology to meet the new requirements of new high yields or biofortification or resistance against the growing pests and diseases. So, but technology should not be bypassed according to me. We have to find answers and then move forward. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Last question on agriculture front. What would be the practical solutions to persuade farmers to shift their traditional patterns? For example, shifting farmers of Punjab from wheat and rice pattern, or to reduce stubble burning, improve water saving practices. What would be the right strategies to persuade farmers?
Any adoption of new practice calls for human behavioral change. A change in human behavior can be brought about by a system of incentives and disincentives. As long as farmers continue to get free power, then they're encouraged to adopt a practice which is not good actually. Whereas you can give that incentive if they practice good systems, which means if they grow pulses or oil seeds instead of paddy, for example, if the government says, I'll give you X amount of money as compensation, then the farmers are incentivized. So you have to find some system of incentivizing the farmers. Because in the intercrop comparison, they may find they're getting lesser money by growing pulses than when they grow paddy. So they may not be bothered about the ecological consequences. But if I say that I will give you compensation because you're going to lose in the intercrop comparison, then the farmers might say, all right, this is ecological sound and also I get money, so I'll adopt it. So we need good incentives, whether on power, water, or crops, or even crop insurance, for example. Give them a better crop insurance. And then there has to be proper institution which will communicate this thing, deliver these incentives, capacity build the farmers. And of course, some element of penalty and enforcement also will be in order. A penalty serves as a threat. So according to me, a package which has incentives, institutions, and penalty will help in achieving the desired change in the human behavior. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. There are multiple questions, and especially agriculture being such a dynamic aspect, and for a country like India with the diversity that we are in, questions will continue, debates will continue, and we will have. There are some questions that have been asked by panelists last year, which are pretty structural from an administrative perspective. So, some of our aspirants wanted your view given the wide experience that you carry with bureaucracy. One specific question was about the generalist versus specialist debate.
Yeah.
The question was, don't you think for areas like agriculture, like we have it in kind of defense, space, and atomic energy, for areas like agriculture, science and technology, also for transport and others, should we have specialists leading the departments? Because it's always IAS who are heading the departments.
Yeah, this is a question every time that is, I mean, it's been going on, this kind of debate has been going for years. See, there cannot be any definitive yes or no to the questions. What we need is at the senior levels, as secretary, for example, you need policy making capabilities. A policy making capability comes from a combination of field experience as well as knowledge of the subject and the ability to coordinate, connect with different agencies, state governments, national government, different departments, private stakeholders, farmers, etc. So a civil servant has got that advantage of having worked in the field and therefore he knows the field situation. He's worked in the state, so he knows the state context. And then, since he has grown over a period of time, has acquired the ability to coordinate, converge, and understand the implications of the policies. Okay, so there are certain advantages of having a civil servant with varied experience. And no subject is an island.
Retired IAS.
Every subject has also the advantage. I mean, every subject is linked to other subject. Like agriculture is related to fertilizers. Agriculture is related to MSME. Agriculture is related to water resource department. So there are interlinkages. So somebody who's worked in different departments brings that advantage, that particular experience. Now, how do you ensure that the knowledge domain of this particular officer is also up to date? Because that's also important. Only means that you can have a system where there's continuous training, orientation made available to these officers so that they develop domain expertise. That means initially you worked in various departments, but during the last 8 to 10 years, you are asked to specialize yourself in related departments, 1 or 2 departments. So that way you'll be able to combine the latest knowledge with the other experiences required. No policymaker is expected to be an expert. Any expert for that matter, let us say some engineer, for example. There are multiple dimensions of engineering. Somebody may have studied civil engineering. Somebody may have just studied computers. But is engineering just computers or is it just civil engineering? So there cannot be any single person of any domain who has got knowledge of everything. That we must understand. Doctor. Now, at the policy making level, do we need a radiologist? Do we need an anesthetist? Or do we require somebody who has studied the child? So the short point is that it is very difficult to find any one particular person, one particular discipline which can address every aspect. But policy making requires the ability to pick up the knowledge, to read, to understand, comprehend. This is what is being tested of you people when you go for interviews. Whether you are able to comprehend, given the particular few minutes, are you able to read it, understand? So a generalist also has a professional expertise in policy making, and then if he takes interest in upgrading his knowledge, he'll be good enough. But this does not mean that an expert cannot be made a good policy maker. An expert in a particular domain of science or agriculture science or medical science can also evolve into a good policy maker. So I guess depending upon the situation, we can have either of them. And therefore, what we see in atomic energy or space science, where you need a very deeper understanding because they are little more complex subjects. So we can have, this government has said already we could have them. So I think your answer should be that yes, we should be open to everything. Depending upon the situation, depending upon needs of the time, anybody can be brought in. There can be a system of bringing lateral entries. If they find somebody is excellent at that point of time, he can be brought laterally. But then why people are joining civil services? Because the only incentive they see is their growth. And if they see that they cannot grow beyond a certain limit, then you may not find the best of people taking this exam. So there are both pros and cons. You're all now so aspiring to join civil services because you think you'll grow up to level of secretary or somewhere there. Suppose you find that there's no scope for that, then you might not, many of you may drop out. Some of you are good doctors or some entrepreneurs might say, all right, I'll try it out there. So I guess there are pros and cons. We must keep our mind open according to me. Okay, we need to keep our minds open. But a civil servant must continuously learn, continuously upgrade his knowledge, otherwise he'll be outdated. Today, nobody respects you just because you occupy a position. You will get respect provided you're honest, professionally competent, you can display integrity, you can display knowledge, competence, and that you are also sensitive to the people of this country, and that you are loyal to democracy and constitution. So unless you're able to bring in these multiple dimensions and capacities, you will not be respected. Gone are the days when our country was feudal in its outlook. Just because you are a head of the district or head of a department or head of the organization, you automatically got respect. No, not anymore. Particularly when you people grow, you will not find it. Nobody is going to give you that respect just because you occupy that position. It will come to you provided you are capable of occupying that position. That is my belief. So keep that in mind. Your life does not end with getting through the IAS or other services. Your life actually begins after getting through. You must make all efforts to open the doors of opportunities, but you should be able to sustain that opportunity through continuous upgradation and by remaining honest, professionally competent. For heaven's sake, never have this thought in mind that I can make money. Get that out of your mind. If you want money, then there are other services. Other domains. You can go and become an entrepreneur. But you're getting into civil services because it is an opportunity for service. That's why it's called civil services. You're going to serve the people. And it's a great opportunity that you're going to occupy positions that will provide an opportunity to reorient the policies of the government in service of the people. So please keep this in mind. You must be very clear. And simultaneously must keep your mind open. If something is in the interest of the country, you should accept it and not become a block So I guess this is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very insightful and something which was very touching from the perspective of idea and objective also. Uh, we now open for the last set of questions, and after that, we'll have a closing note from sir.
Yeah, I think I would, no, I'm so sorry. I need to leave for another meeting. Okay.
Yes.
So we
Very
can,
few words on a closing note, just inspiring the aspirants going up for the interview, sir.
yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure that, all the students here and the civil service candidates are much more knowledgeable than me at this particular stage, because all of them are driven by the passion, driven by the flame to achieve something. And I strongly believe that when there's burning desire within us to achieve something, nothing can stop us from achieving that. And you already shown the way that it's possible, given the fact that you have got through two difficult stages and you're at the final stage. So as you now go for interview, go with clarity, confidence, calmness. Don't be anxious. The personality test is not to know your knowledge, or to test your knowledge. It is to test your ability to become a honorable member of the civil service. Your attitude, your aptitude. They would like to know how committed are you to the constitution, how sensitive you are to the requirements of our people of the country, how capable you are of working as a team member, how capable you are of leading the men and the organizations. So you should be able to demonstrate these qualities, which means that you don't have to keep talking when not necessary. If you do not know, you should be able to say that you may not know that thing. So I would suggest that recapitulate all that you have read so far. Be up to date on the current affairs, national and international affairs. Improve your communication skills. You must be able to show yourself up in an appropriate manner. That means you cannot be sloppy, you cannot be haughty, you should not be disrespectful, you should remain humble. Humility does not mean that you bend down. No, you have to maintain your dignity and simultaneously be polite. So, politeness is the more correct word. So, you must be able to show them that you're willing to take on any task, that you're willing to work anywhere in the country, you are willing to sacrifice when needed, that you are here not because you are interested in material wealth, you are here because you see this as an opportunity to serve and be an elegant, a dignified person. So I'm sure that you will be able to do all these things. And it's a continuous learning. And I wish you the very best for your civil services personality test. And I wish and hope and pray that all of you get through. But then never give up if you don't happen to get through. You got another chance, keep trying. Never get demoralized. As when you have got this aim and you come from your places, to different places to study, so you must continue with that particular, desire. So try again and again. And lastly, I would say that sometimes even if we miss something, but there's something else awaiting us. So don't give it up. That is something else that you need to try. Do try, and that may be still better for you. And I firmly believe that whatever we get ultimately, it all depends upon us how to utilize it, how to make the best of it. Whatever we get is like a genetic potential, but the full potential of that can be harvested only when we create a good environment, and that environment will come from our desire to continue to work with honesty, integrity, continuously able to read, to write, discuss, keep our minds open, and desire to grow continuously, compare ourselves with ourselves, and see whether I've been growing today compared to what I was yesterday. So I think, you are all capable of it, and must congratulate you, and I wish you the very best for your endeavor. And I will await to hear that you all made it through this exam and you got your good ranks, and that you made it to the final list of civil services for this year 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And a word of thanks also from Srinivas, sir, who made this session possible. We want to personally thank you on behalf of India for IAS.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Thank you, Srinivas. Namaskara, Srinivas.
Namaskara, sir. And very my heartfelt gratitude, and it was very insightful and motivational one, sir. Always our candidates definitely enrich by your rich experience, and hope in future also your cooperation will be with us, sir.
Thank you, Srinivas, to both of you. Both of you are taking a lot of interest. You are giving your personal time. It is a service to the people of the state and the country. I personally admire all that you are doing, and please continue to do that. And I'm always there, and whatever little I can do, it is my pleasure and privilege. So do call me whenever I'm required. So thank you very much, and God bless you both too and your organization.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It would always be a pleasure to host you in Bangalore very soon when you come down here, sir. So please
Yes.
do let us know, and our students would be very happy to have you, to
Yes.
see you face to face and have a lecture here, sir. Thank you so much for giving us this time. Thank you to all the participants for making this possible. Have a great evening, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and good night to everybody. Namaskar. Bye.
Good night.